Rogue Realm Guardian Grid is at its best before your defenses become too powerful. Early in a run, every decision matters. You need income, but investing too heavily in your economy can leave your road wide open. You need towers, but buying too many weak defenses can delay the stronger options you need later. I think this tension is where the game really works. Hi, I'm Vadd. I review games after completing them, and here in my Rogue Realm review, I gotta tell you that after you unlock the right towers, you start stacking some upgrades. I feel like that early tension that Rogue Realm does so well starts to fall apart. Once you get things like laser towers and lightning towers, these towers that do true damage, entire waves stop feeling so threatening. Even as the enemy count rises, their health bars increase, your decisions start to become more simple as the game progresses. And I think that's the central struggle here with Rogue Realm. This is a tower defense game built around creating a different combat system during each run because you draft these cards. You choose your bonuses, you combine your towers, and all of a sudden you turn a weak defense into a machine that wipes out everything in front of it. To be clear here, I think Rogue Realm gets all the fundamentals of tower defense mostly right, and I'm around $10. I think the asking price is reasonable. The question for me here is whether a decent 8 to 10 hour tower defense game is enough when so much of what I think of it as its identity is built around replayability and build variety here. Because Rogue Realm gives you plenty of ways to become stronger, it just doesn't give you enough reasons to keep experimenting after you discover what works. Rogue Realms has this medieval fantasy tower defense theme with this roguelite progression. Your enemies travel along a route across this grid battlefield. You spend your resources on defensive buildings or improving your economy, and you try to survive each wave. During a run, you're also going to be choosing cards that are going to give you more economy or cards that are going to give you more defensive power. Some are going to increase your damage, other are going to change your income. There's some utility here. The idea overall is just very straightforward. You begin with very limited money and a very, very weak defense. Each wave you survive, you gain some resources, and you slowly build a much stronger system. One run, you might focus on a particular type of tower. You build all archer towers, you pick all the cards for archer towers. Another, you might heavily invest in a complete separate tower you built around a fire build. Another time, you could be utilizing your utility buildings in a way that supports smaller groups of damage dealing towers. I think the foundation here supports enough experimentation. I think the towers are distinct, and the upgrade pool includes economic and utility choices instead of only just bigger number, more damage. I think your decisions here noticeably change how quickly your defense grows, the power you can unleash. Like I said at the start here, the problem for me is that a lot of these decisions do not remain equally important the longer your run goes. Rogue Realm puts a lot of weight on these randomized cards and this flexible build crafting. You're going to get tower synergies, and there's something satisfying about watching several effects combined and the just overwhelming defensive firepower. And on my runs, my defenses became dramatically stronger the longer a run went. My towers would get into effects, my economy upgrades would speed up development, my support choices would improve my entire board. There's this real sense of escalation, but I don't think the game fully supports the level of build freedom it appears to. Yes, there are plenty of towers, cards, economy buildings, but they're not all equally useful. I found out over time that once certain towers just began outperforming everything else, the wider selection really felt like it started to narrow. Yes, I could choose a weaker tower to make a run different or just harder, but that's not the same thing as having several equally useful strategies. Ultimately, the laser towers and the lightning towers are the clearest example. These towers deal true damage, they chain damage, they're wildly powerful. And yes, when money is limited, buying one can feel like the most important of an investment. You need to survive long enough to afford it, and you may have to delay other upgrades. And I think that works so well. That tension between, do I buy this stronger tower that I know is going to kill things? Can I afford to upgrade it? But once you can afford several of them, the challenge here collapses. The waves are destroyed before they create pressure, and even though the enemies increase in health and speed and count, it does not restore that early to middle tension. On some level, I think Rogue Realm's Guardian Grid here treats your overwhelming strength as the ultimate reward. But for me, it's also the point where meaningful decisions ended. There's a huge difference between feeling powerful and feeling unnecessary. I think a truly successful late game tower defense game should be rewarding the player's choice while continuing to test the build. New enemies could be resisting certain attacks, routes could change. I think the players here could be forced to cover a new weakness. I think there's lots of good options here. Rogue Realms often gives you the power without enough pressure to challenge it, and that matters even more when you go into endless mode. I think endless mode should exist to expose weaknesses and force adjustments. If the strongest towers continue to clear everything, it becomes less about the adaptation and more about waiting for the enemy numbers to finally catch up. Frankly, in every map I played, the early rounds were the strongest part of Rogue Realm. I was constantly balancing my two needs, whether my economy was capable of supporting my stronger towers, while also having that early immediate defense I needed to survive just that next wave. Spend too much of my economy on income and the enemies are going to bust through my lines, tear down my castle. But if I spend everything on the towers, I might survive those early rounds while my economy doesn't let me scale into the middle and late game. And those correct choices depend on the battlefield, your cards, your relics, your defenses, and I think these decisions really do create a good risk and a good tension that every tower defense game needs. As you complete more runs, you unlock a crystal currency you can spend at a relic shop, which provides you buffs you can bring into future runs. And I think right in the middle of the run is where that roguelite system works absolutely best, because you have enough upgrades to see a direction forming, a strategy starting to come together, but your build is not complete. You might be several cards just away from supporting that one tower, or you're just looking for a little more from one of your utility buildings, and your stronger economy is going to let you replace your weaker towers in a significant way. I really do think that Rogue Realm can be genuinely fun. I think ultimately the biggest problems continue to occur once your economy is solved. By the end of a run, you just have an overwhelming abundance of resources, and you oftentimes have the strongest towers active. More money arrives, more upgrades are purchased, you place more towers, but these decisions by the end of a run have just become automatic. You're no longer asking whether another lightning tower or another laser tower fits or another poison build fits. You're just placing one because it already works. I think that yes, watching a defense that you built that at the start struggled turn into a screen feeling death machine is entertaining, but I think that entertainment has a limited lifespan. I think those first few waves feel like a reward, and after that, the results start to become predetermined. And I think in some ways, the short length of this game works both for it and against it. I think you could crush a run, at least 2-starring every single map easily in well under 8 hours. There is an endless mode. You could go back on the harder difficulties for the 3 stars, as this is a game that gets moving quickly and does not demand a long grind before it becomes interesting. But once you've seen the strongest towers and understood the optimal upgrades, you may really feel like you've already seen what matters most. Because, again, the core tower defense gameplay here is solid. Placing the towers is clear, resource management is easy to understand, the tower selection gives you enough options to start forming a plan. I think the systems are all readable. The larger issue I found here is that there's just not enough strategic depth. I think one of the greatest strengths of Rogue Realm here as well is that it is easy to learn. It reaches its main play loop very quickly. It's not here demanding a huge time investment from you. If you're a fan of tower defense games, this is a good tower defense game. Right now, the biggest weakness of this game is simply late game balance. I think expensive towers, yes, they should feel powerful, but once you place a few, if it allows you to stop caring about the other towers you've placed, there seems to be this sense of lost importance. I like the idea of the card system, but it has kind of the same issues, because the random offers start to become diluted. It starts to become hard to shape a focused build when you're gambling on the next card being what you need. I think there's a little bit too much randomness, especially when you have a useful upgrade you know would solve your problem. But then once you start to get the cards you need, it just feels too predictable. I also think the maps are a little too simple. I like to see some more advanced maps later on with a more meaningful maze to them. Because overall, I think the difficulty as far as the general tower defense genre goes here is on the easier side. And maybe that's what you're looking for. You know, I think the best version of this game keeps all of its same basic structure because that early economy works. I think the towers, they make sense. The upgrades are satisfying. I just want more balance over time. I think the card system needs a little bit of a rework. There needs to be just a little bit more player control. Maybe a card removal system, more rerolls, or a tower-focused upgrade path where you pick the deck of cards, whether you're building a mage magic kind of a tower defense, or you go into a bomb ballistic kind of tower defense. Maybe there's a way to bring your own deck to kind of focus your own path. And I'd like to see the endless mode introduce more changing conditions rather than increased numbers of enemies. Ultimately, I think Rogue Realm here costs around $10, and at that price, I think this value is very fair. You're going to get around 8 to 12 hours of main progression, with more available if you truly enjoy testing towers or pushing through endless mode. No, that's not a huge amount of content, but this is not a premium price game. I enjoyed the early economic decisions, the tower selections, and watching my very weak defense grow into something capable of destroying entire waves. Yes, there are currently here some balance issues, and yes, the card dilution can sometimes make builds harder to control, but if you're looking for a short tower defense game for a handful of evenings, I think Rogue Realm fits that niche nicely and is priced fairly. If you enjoy straightforward tower defense games and do not need a huge amount of structure around it, this is for you. If you're someone who likes to balance income against immediate survival, testing different towers, and watching a build gradually become absolutely overpowered, this is a great experience for you. If you're the type of player who's here expecting a deep roguelite build crafting system, this is not really the game for you. Yes, there are plenty of upgrades, but the balance problems and random card offering really limit how meaningful some of that selection becomes. This is not a game for players who want complicated mazes or highly demanding challenges. If you're looking for a very long campaign, strong storytelling, and major meta progression, I think you should look elsewhere. Rogue Realms is small by design. For me, I kind of walked away thinking Rogue Realm Guardian Grid is a solid little tower defense game. Yes, its best moments come early, right when you're trying to build an economy without allowing your defenses to collapse. This is not a highly flexible build crafting game. It is a bare bones tower defense game with a very soft roguelite progression. I think at around $10, it is offering a fair value for someone who enjoys straightforward tower defense games and wants something bite-sized. I think the danger here might be that Rogue Realms has enough options to be fun, but it's enjoyable, I think, until you solve it, and solving it may happen much sooner than you expect. At the time of review, Rogue Realm Guardian Grids is awarded a 2 out of 5. I recommend.